We're all good.
Okay, Allye, you have your screen share back, it looks like. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our student athletes sharing experiences from the 2020 social justice movement. My name is Susan Gent, and I represent the University Library and also the Ames Public Library. And I just want to cover a few housekeeping issues so we can start this panel. Please be respectful. I'll be keeping an eye on Q&A and chat. And Q&A and chat are both available on the top right corner of the WOVA app, especially if you're not in full screen. They're really obvious there. There's also a survey on the left side of the page under the navigation section. And it's a real quick survey. Just take a few minutes to share some feedback afterwards so that everyone learns what works and what you liked. And we'll let the panelists introduce themselves. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Susan. We are excited to be here today. My name is Allye Bodholdt, and I am the associate for the Student Athlete and Letter Winner Engagement Unit here at Iowa State. I am originally from Ames, Iowa, and I graduated from Iowa State in 2018 with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management and a double minor in Spanish and Event Management. Next, we are going to hear from our panelists. A few of them are unable to be with us in person here today, but wanted to share their experiences with all of you via pre-recorded messages throughout this presentation. Those unable to join us today include Trey Jackson, Coach Daniyal Robinson, and Kiara Williams. Trey Jackson is a guard on the men's basketball team. He is a sophomore majoring in communication studies. Trey is originally from Columbia, South Carolina. Daniyal Robinson is an assistant coach for the men's basketball team. He has been in his current role since 2016 and was previously at Iowa State from 2008 to 2010. Coach Robinson has also coached at Loyola Chicago and at Houston. Kiara Williams is on the women's track and field team, and her events are shot put, discus, weight throw, and hammer throw. She is a senior majoring in history and is pursuing a teaching career. Keiara is originally from Kansas City, Missouri. And now I'll turn it over to Thomas to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Thomas Pollard. I grew up in Ames. I graduated from Iowa State back in 2019, and I'm currently in the Masters of Information Systems program as I finish out my eligibility running cross country and track here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lehr Thorson. I'm on the swimming and diving team here at Iowa State, specializing in breaststroke, majoring in event management, and recently accepted to get my master's degree in journalism and mass communication as I finish my eligibility for that 5th year. And then I'm from Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vance. I'm currently a redshirt senior. I'm a Mike linebacker on our football team, and I'm currently in liberal studies, and I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Lindsay is also unable to be here with us today, but she has prepared a short video as part of this presentation. Lindsay oversees the Student Athlete and Letter Winner Engagement Unit here at Iowa State as the Assistant Athletics Director. She is originally from Aurora, Colorado, and came to Iowa State on a soccer scholarship, playing from 1999 to 2003. She holds 2 degrees from Iowa State, a Master's of Education in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, and a Bachelor's of Science in Marketing with a minor in Philosophy.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Long, and I'm the Assistant Athletics Director for Student Athlete and Letter Winner Engagement. On behalf of Iowa State Athletics, we are once again grateful and honored to be included in the Iowa State Conference on Race and Ethnicity. As we prepared for this presentation, it is important to share the approach and how, as a department, we have engaged in a 6-phase process around social justice issues. The first two phases, which are engagement and assessment, are ongoing initiatives that drove the discussion with the panelists in sharing their experiences throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, social justice movement, and their personal commitment to growth. We all have a responsibility to contribute to these conversations, and this work can no longer be voluntary. We can gain compassion and empathy by taking time to listen to others' experiences and perspectives, two important pieces to developing a growth mindset.
To set the stage, we wanted to briefly walk through the initial timeline of how COVID-19 changed everything as we knew it. We understand that COVID is a collective experience, and what we will be focusing on today during this presentation is the uniqueness of the student-athlete experience. On March 11th, after Rudy Gobert with the Utah Jazz tested positive for COVID-19, the Jazz Thunder game was abruptly postponed seconds before tip-off. At the time this decision was made, the Cycle men's basketball team was in the middle of their game against Oklahoma State in the opening session of the 2020 Big 12 Tournament Championships at the Sprint Center in Kansas City. Around this same time, the Big 12 made an immediate decision that fans would not be allowed in the arena after Wednesday night's games. The next morning, on March 12th, both the men's and women's Big 12 Tournament Championships were officially canceled, and all teams were making immediate arrangements to send their athletes home. Later that day, the NCAA canceled both the men's and women's NCAA basketball championships, and our athletics director, Jamie Pollard, was in his first year of serving on the NCAA men's basketball committee. This provided a unique experience as these decisions were being made in real time. As we continue through these events, we'll hear from Coach Robinson and Trey on what they remember from these experiences.
So when the pandemic hit, we were in the middle of the Big 12 Conference tournament, and we were playing Oklahoma State at the time, and over the PA, I just remember the PA announcer saying that games would, there would be no fans attending games the next day, and there was just an eerie feeling in the crowd. After the game, we took the players back to the hotel, and during that time, we started seeing across the ticker other conferences canceling the conference tournaments. And we finally got our guys back home, and we sent them off just saying, you know, hopefully we'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll touch base with you. And from there, it just continued. The pandemic actually, you know, just continued to go on. Trey, what were your thoughts?
Building off of what D-Rob said, it was just a lot of uncertainty going on during that game, and even when we went back to the hotel, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if we were coming home, coming back to play any more basketball. So we were just waiting for that next word.
So basically, you know, since that time up until now, it's just been following protocols and persevering.
Thanks to Coach Robinson and Trey for sharing their experience of the Big 12 tournament and COVID. These graphics that you can see on your screen illustrate the comprehensive Iowa State athletics competition calendar from March through May. Cancellations impacted every person on this panel, both in-season and out-of-season athletes. For our student athletes in season, would you please share what you recall from these experiences? We will start with a message from Keiara.
When the pandemic hit, we had just finished our indoor championship and we were getting ready for our outdoor season. I remember being in the weight room working out and our coach coming in and letting us know that we were probably going to go home for at least a couple of weeks, which at first there was a little excitement because it was my birthday week, so I thought, oh, finally birthday with family. But that week turned into months, which soon had me feeling a little different about it because I knew we had an outdoor season. It was my junior year. And I was starting to wonder, like, eligibility-wise, is this going to be able to be made up, or are we just canceling this season, not going to worry about it? I remember being at home, everything was closed, and I had to figure out where are we going to work out, where am I going to train? I remember just constantly talking to my coach and him telling me like, oh, maybe get some dumbbells from Walmart or try to do stuff. And me being a thrower, running outside was out of the question. It was something I was not going to do. So quickly we go to Walmart, everything's picked over because everyone has the same thing in mind about working out. Once I finally get 15-pound dumbbells, I started just using the Nike app, doing workouts at home. And then once things slowly started to open up, it was hard to find a gym that I could get into and get stuff done. Also, a lot of the tracks were closed, so it was hard to figure out where I was going to go to still train and throw. And as the summer months came, I went to Texas to visit family, and I was able to get to a track and finally throw. And just getting back into things even felt weird, and we still had so many unanswered questions, like, what does our season look like? Are we ever going to come back? Like, when is this going to end? Once talking to our coach, and he told us eligibility-wise that we were going to get to have our eligibility again, for me, that raised a lot of questions because I'm going to school to be a teacher, and I knew I had student teaching coming up in the fall, meaning I had no plans to be back in Ames after the fall of 2021. So after hearing eligibility, I knew I had to start thinking about whether I was going to continue to use my eligibility or if I was just going to be done with track. So I still myself was wondering about a lot of things. And then I also wondered training-wise when I get back, am I going to be able to perform at the level that I was performing at coming into my senior season? And I knew I didn't want to let the team down or like not be in shape or not feel prepared. And I remember talking to a lot of teammates like, oh, what have you been doing? Like, have you been working out? And some people were blessed to have like gyms in their house or like workout equipment, but for most of us, it was just simply having dumbbells or little equipment. The pandemic has helped me realize not to take advantage of those things and just to make the best out of any situation, because training-wise, I had to make up stuff or just be in the room doing whatever I could do to try to stay ready, because I never knew when we were going to come back or when I was going to get the call saying, hey, you guys can come back to campus. And unfortunately, that call never came.
Thanks to Kiara for sharing on how COVID impacted eligibility and shifted timelines for student athletes' plans after graduation, and a good reminder to not take the small things for granted. Thomas, would you please share next?
Yes, so going back to the fall before COVID, our cross-country team had a really successful season. We won Big 12s, got fourth at NCAAs, and really marked kind of a high point in our program in our recent history. And so we went into indoors with the goal of, okay, we have a really nice shot to win the Big 12 indoor title, potentially win an NCAA indoor title, and then we wanted to go win Big 12 outdoors, which is pretty unheard of in the Big 12 to get the team sweep of winning cross country, indoor, and outdoor. So we got to cross country, hosted the indoor Big 12 meet at home, so we got to win a Big 12 title in front of our friends and family, and that was probably the highest high we'd experienced as a program in all of our times here. So it was a really special moment, seeing all the hard work pay off, seeing the program really achieve what we thought we could do. And our guys that had qualified for the NCAA indoor meet had left for the indoor national championship. And so they were going there with something to prove, since Iowa State hadn't done that in a while, and to be in the conversation of having a chance to win a national title was something really big and meant a lot to us. And that's when COVID hit. And so I think for all of us, it was like just something totally out of your control. You know, you put in so much time and effort to, training, staying healthy, and then something you have no control over ends it all. And so I think it really helped us understand how temporary of an experience being an athlete is. And has really made us thankful for everything Iowa State does for us, and really just appreciate every single moment, because it's a small time in our lives that for the rest of our lives we'll look back on as something really special and really neat. And so I think for all the guys that are still around, it's really made us appreciate getting to compete and living the life of a student athlete.
Thanks, Thomas. You have a really good perspective on appreciating every moment. Lehr, will you please share next?
Yeah, so for swimming, right around when the global pandemic started here in the US, my team had just completed our Big 12 championship swim and dive meet. This was going to be the end of our season, and we had our set time off after competing. So when we arrived back in the beginning of March, we already were in our off period, but what we didn't know was that that would last for months. Having access to pools was really hard to come by, making our training difficult and unique. We were trying to find ways to replicate movements outside of the water to stay in shape once we could safely return to the water, but like everything else, this was a challenge. Not having access to pools, like while our competitors did, put us behind for this season also. Aside from training challenges, I found myself struggling with mental health. I struggled a lot with the unknown of the year and needed to know that everything would be okay. I reached out to counseling services through Iowa State, but ultimately a lot of my worries remained. Another element of COVID-19 was balancing multiple communities. All student athletes were home with family during the lockdown, but still felt the need to remain connected to their Iowa State community and teams. This gave me a new perspective around the connection I have with Iowa State University and how my position in SAC can influence relationships among student athletes.
Thank you, Lehr, for sharing your experiences. Next, we will hear from Orion with Cyclone Football as they were entering their spring season.
Coming off of our previous season before COVID hit, we had just come off of the loss versus Notre Dame in our bowl game. And everybody just had that feeling where we felt like we could have did better. We could have do more. And going into our spring season and spring workouts, we all felt confident. We all had that fire. We were ready to go. And we just were looking forward to getting in and working out with our new strength staff. And once we got a little bit of a glimpse of how our new strength staff was going to go and how our new workouts were going to be, it got cut off. And at first we were kind of excited because this was like the first time we've had a real break. We all were thinking, hey, we get to go home. But in reality, we didn't know how long we were going to be at home. Because originally we felt like it was going to be a 3-week break, all right, and then we're back into it. But then once we started to realize we're probably not going to be able to come back, probably won't be able to even have a season, it started to dawn on our entire team. And that's where, like everyone else, we struggled with like finding places to work out. We struggled with actually getting good workouts because we lost the opportunity to get better in the spring. And we also didn't have that necessary structure of workouts that we normally would have. So it created a lot of complications for us. But as a team, we found ways through getting videos with our coaches, sending us quick workouts that we can do, our nutrition staff helping us, being able to find ways to get us the proper meals that we needed. And with education, like our academic advisors did a great job with making sure that our guys were able to get the necessary tutoring they needed and making sure that everyone had their schooling still in place while they're at home.
Thank you, Orion. Really good takeaways with staying disciplined during this time and your commitment to a schedule. Another thing to note on the uniqueness of this situation was scheduling travel for our international student athletes to go home. As borders were closing, it was a race to get arrangements made, but we are thankful that everyone was able to get home safely. COVID-19 forced the world to slow down, and when George Floyd died on May 25th, social injustice became more visible to everyone, especially those who hadn't experienced it before. Orion, will you share your perspective in how COVID brought more attention to the social injustice that has always existed?
Through this COVID period, it really allowed for people to slow down and actually see the social injustices that we had going on that have always been going on in our society. With people not being able to just go and have other obligations outside of staying inside their homes and being locked down, it really put a light onto it, and people were forced to watch it. And it wasn't just something that you could just turn away from, or you could just say, oh, someone else will fix it. It was a real truth that we had to address and we had to be shown. And because of COVID, now it's something that we are continually trying to change every day.
Thank you, Orion, for sharing how COVID allowed there to be a different focus on social justice. Thomas, will you share your experiences and how you were able to connect with teammates during this time?
Yeah, so with everything going on and the pandemic, and so people had gone home. I think a lot of guys felt a little isolated, and you didn't have that every day seeing the guys in the locker room and stuff. And the George Floyd death really hit home because of, one, the proximity, just how close to Ames that was, but then two, having some teammates that were up in the Minneapolis area. And so that was a little scary, thinking how easily could that have been one of them. So I think it was an important time for all of us to just reach out to each other, really let each other know that we're there, have those kind of difficult conversations, really let some of those teammates know that I'm here for you. Help them realize you're an ally, because one important thing I heard during that time was you can't tell someone how to feel. And that really hit home to me, because growing up in Ames, being white, I've never experienced, something like that. Or my white friends haven't had to deal with, being judged or, some sort of discrimination. And so just because I haven't felt that or I haven't seen that doesn't mean I don't have teammates or there aren't people out there having to deal with those kinds of things every single day. And so it really pushed me to go kind of educate myself, stay up to date on the news, go watch some movies. And one that a friend had recommended was the Central Park 5. And I don't know how many of you have seen that, but boy, was that a difficult watch. And I got 30 minutes in, it was so tough that I had to turn it off. I couldn't keep watching. And then I sat there and I was like, who am I to say this is too difficult for me to watch and go through? When those kids, those families, and Black people in our country have to deal with that stuff every single day. They don't have the choice where they get to just turn it off. And so I think, personally, and continuing today, is that as hard it is to watch and read and see some of the stuff out there, we have to keep looking, because this stuff isn't going away, and it's going to take a long time to help fix it.
Thank you, Thomas, for sharing your personal experiences. Next, we will hear from Coach Robinson, Trey, and Keiara.
In response to the tragic events of this summer, it became clear that there was more that needed to be done. And after talking to some of our other assistant coaches in the Big 12, we came together and formed an alliance. And we partnered with the Big 12, and we set out to serve our student athletes better through some initiatives, and that we partnered with our student athlete development. We went through voter registration. We also did financial literacy. We did a police partnership. Those were some things that we felt like would help our student athletes well beyond their time as players and as athletes, and that can help them well beyond their years in college. Another thing that we did was we got together with our team each week over Zoom, and this is something that we hadn't done in the past. And our players were really engaged, and we talked about the social issues, the things that were going on. A lot of guys participated in marches. Guys did different things. We encouraged them to use their platform to help others, to voice the things that they were going through. And I think this helped our team come together over this time, and we learned a lot about each other.
I believe the social justice movement was a big part of everybody's life. It just stood out the most because everybody had to watch it. George Floyd, that was a big part of the social justice movement, because it was the most stood out. People really had to sit down and watch what was going on. It was really broadcast throughout the whole world. So it was tough. I also had an experience myself. I was going to Walmart with a couple of friends, and then a random person called the police on us, thinking we were going in there to steal and cause harm on other people and just do bad things, but that wasn't the case at all. So we just left immediately, and I've never had anything happen to me like that before. So that was just hard going through that. Also, the coaches did a great job of bringing everyone together through Zoom calls. We had to change the way we communicated because we hadn't seen each other in so long. So we went through Zoom calls. We were talking about the social justice movement, asking how we were doing through our life, and it just really brought us together since we couldn't come together physically. So that was just a good way to communicate.
In the midst of the pandemic, I remember sitting watching TV and hearing about George Floyd. I was sitting with my family, and a lot of us, for me, that was the first time I had really witnessed something like that. I know of like previous cases with Trayvon Martin, but it didn't really feel firsthand for me. But watching that, I remember just looking at my brother, thinking of my cousin, and just saying like, that could have easily been one of them. And I think with us being home and all we have was the news to watch, it really brought that for us has always been around. Like, this was nothing new for us. I know the worry my mom feels when my brother goes somewhere or when we go somewhere ourselves, and just worrying about where he's at, what he's doing. And seeing this happen to George Floyd, I think put it on a stage where people couldn't hide from it. All you had to do was watch the news, get on social media while sitting at home, and it's all everyone's talking about. And I think bringing it to the news really brought attention to an issue that unfortunately has always been around, and more awareness is now coming from it. And it made me even in tune with who I am in spreading awareness, whether getting involved with protests or posting stuff on social media, just to understand that I'm more than just an athlete. What I do at school isn't all that's about me. Sometimes when I leave school and I take off my athletic gear, I'm a regular person. The things that happened to George Floyd could have easily been someone in my family, it could have been me. So thinking of that really made me want to educate myself more and be more in tune with my Blackness and be more aware of what's going on around me. And I think this being on a national stage helped other people realize that we are more than just the athlete. They're getting a call from my coach and him just showing support and letting me know if there's anything he could do, and just trying to find understanding with what's going on. And I think just that, hearing that support from someone who may not ever really know what it feels like meant a lot to me and my family. And as an athlete, I think just being in a situation where you never know when something like that can happen, and you don't know if you being an athlete can get you out of that situation, it really made me be more aware and have understanding and reach out to my teammates and just show my support in any way that I can help them, or any way that we can educate ourselves, or any movements we can do here, just to bring more awareness to issues that hit so close to home.
It's really impactful to hear each of their experiences through the social justice movement. Next, Lehr, will you please share?
Yeah, during the beginning stages of this movement, I really had to sit down and do the educational piece. What did I still need to learn, and what resources are out there that I can be utilizing? The social justice movement has been a considerable discussion in our Student Athlete Advisory Committee agenda meetings, which has been a great impact on myself and my peers at Iowa State. I realized that my team at Iowa State is much more than just the girls on my swim team. Given my experience on SAC, I began to consider all athletes at Iowa State my teammates. The conversation around the social justice movement were crucial to the relationships we formed in SAC. A recent experience I'd like to share is given within my internship, provided the ability to notice multiple perspectives in the support of Black History Month. One of our interns decided to do a Black History Month series where selected interns would give a quote about Black History Month. After the initial post was posted, the series ended and no other interns were asked to participate. I went to our intern advisor to ask why the series wasn't continued, and what I learned from asking more questions in this effort was that it only focused on the one person of color in our office, and therefore unintentionally sent the wrong message. Based on what I've learned and the position I want to put myself in with being an ally, it was important for me to ask questions to the person who initiated a Black History Month quote. and what was going to come of these efforts. I went back through our social media to see what had been our presence in the support of Black community. I felt it was important to take forward this observation to our supervisor simply to be an ally and further the conversation. As a result of asking more questions and sharing my observation, I developed a better relationship with my intern group as a whole because it allowed for important conversations to take place. There is growth in uncomfortable conversations, and this requires time, thoughtfulness, and most importantly, application.
Did we lose Allye?
It does seem like perhaps Allye has lost her connection. Do you all know who was going to speak next after Lehr?
I think it's a great opportunity for Ryan to speak now.
Yeah. So with my coming out of COVID and us realizing that these social injustice movements have been a real prominent thing in our past, and then especially now, with me, I've had to really rechange the way that I think and how I move from my day to day. I've had to start thinking more about the present, being more in my present moment, especially with the fact that when it comes to my sport, I can't worry about if I'm able to practice here in the future or if I'm able to play a next season. I might not be able to get a season because of the fact that COVID has shown us that we could get it stripped away just as fast as we have it. And through me being able to put myself in the present moment and learning about all the stuff that I've had to I had to go through in my own life, it has helped me be a better person throughout everything that I do. Now I'm more aware of all of the situations that I could potentially be in danger, especially with me being a bigger person and me having dreads. I come off as a threat to some people in certain situations. I've had to, wherever I'm at, I've had to constantly be on my guard and make sure that I'm safe as well as the people who are around me. And I just feel like with COVID, it has made me more of an aware person as well as someone who's in the present.
I think next we can kind of go around and talk about over the last year, how we've grown through all these experiences. So Lehr, if you want to start.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. So I've grown in many ways throughout these experiences. I find myself to be much more empathetic towards others and understand what they might be dealing with. I think that I've become more of a compassionate and thoughtful listener. During quarantine, I was given the opportunity to really slow down, appreciate everything around me, and in some ways, I found more love for my sport, teammates, and coaches. I began craving the activities that I once would have tried to get out of, like tough summer practices, training long course, that kind of stuff. I've also grown by becoming someone who wants to be more informed. I started reading more, listening to informational podcasts, and changing what I chose to see on social media. I've had amazing conversations with friends and family that forced me to consider topics and conversations I would have normally not considered or wanted to have. I know that there is much more to learn and other ways to grow, but I think that some of the experiences of the last year or so have really shaped me as a person and allowed me to grow by being uncomfortable. Another reflective piece within my student athlete experience is how I can impact change within my own sport. Continuing to educate myself and having conversations with others will be something I do for the rest of my life. And Iowa State has given me a great support system of knowledge,
Okay, I think I'm back now. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and how you've grown personally throughout this time. We're going to share a couple videos from Coach Robinson and Trey on how they've really grown throughout this time. And so we will transition into that now.
This has definitely been a growth year for me. The pandemic has allowed me to spend a lot more time with my family. We've all been grounded from our different activities. And so during this time, I've been able to have real conversation with my daughter, who's a freshman in college now. She shared some experiences that she's been through in high school that I was all unaware of. And then, gave me an opportunity to kind of talk to my boys who are 15 and 12 about being young Black men and some of the perceptions that come along with that. Especially my 15-year-old, he's 6'5", he loves and wears hoodies and those type of things. So we've had some dialogue about perceptions and things like that. And then also having those conversations with my daughter has given me a different perspective and a little insight to what our student athletes could be going through during this time. And so that's really changed me, and I feel like I've grown. I've learned a lot from these experiences. It's taking advantage of every opportunity. Stuff like this, and I have to take it away from we can. Also, being optimistic at the time. Find ways to focus on what we're going to do and not break. Also, my faith has always been a big part of my life. Knowing that God has a purpose for everything that's going on.
Thanks to Coach Robinson and Trey for sharing what they've learned throughout this past year. Thomas, would you like to share on how you've grown personally?
Yeah, so I think through this whole time, one, I've just become a lot more self-aware and really challenged myself to learn, go educate myself, but also become comfortable being uncomfortable, because I think that's where real growth happens. And so having some of those difficult conversations, just really trying to learn and help put myself in other people's shoes. We had a speaker, Amber Cabral, come speak to us at SAC. And one thing that really stuck out from her presentation was just the timeline of racism in this country and how long it took us to get past slavery, how long the civil rights movement took. And so I think a big thing I took away from that was just that the whole social justice movement is not a quick fix. One donation or, watching a movie or having a conversation, discussions like these, they're all great, but we can't let ourselves, grow weary in that pursuit of really trying to fix this issue, address it, and just be better. And so I think personally, that's been a challenge to myself, is to keep watching, keep educating myself, and really pushing myself and others to just become better in everything we do.
You bring many great experiences to this conversation. Thanks for sharing, Thomas. Next, we will hear from Keiara.
The pandemic has really forced me to have to look at communicating a lot differently. Prior to the pandemic, I was not really familiar with Zoom or any other web apps with communicating with people. And me going into education, I realized I had to get on Zoom a lot to communicate with teachers and just with other professors, with setting up stuff for my practicums and my pre-student teaching stuff. Receiving teaching during the pandemic has been very interesting. A lot of the stuff has been on Zoom, and I've had to find new ways to engage people and learn just being on a computer all day and trying to engage with the students and learn how to set up that 7 other classrooms while being on a resident. A big thing with the pandemic with communicating is I had to get out of my comfort zone and try to find ways to be more engaged myself with all the other people who were try to figure out ways to get the students themselves and get myself excited about learning and doing that. Also, while being on the screen, I tried to figure out how to touch on topics like the George Floyd issue and other social justice movements. This means setting my bias to the side and not allowing my personal experiences to get in the way with how I'm trying to educate myself and educate others. I've tried reading books and watching a lot of movies to continue to educate myself on issues. I think oftentimes when something like this happens, people like myself think we don't need to talk about this or educate ourselves about it because it's happening to us. Meanwhile, while reading books with my family and stuff, I've learned there's a lot of things I was even unaware about. And it also helped me to realize the privilege that I have. I think oftentimes privilege is seen as this thing that relates only to white people. But I realized I have the privilege of being a college student and being an educated person that I can reach out to other students and other kids and just mentor them on these issues and help them work through the issues that they may not have the same opportunities I have of being in college and knowing the things that I know. And I can help those trying to get on this level. So I think being in tune with my privilege and just understanding not to let my bias always get in the way when I'm trying to speak about social justice movements or trying to educate myself has been a big growing point for me during the pandemic and the social justice movement.
Thanks to Kiara for sharing how she's grown through these experiences. Orion, will you close out our presentation with what you have taken away from this last year?
What I've taken away from this last year is that every day is an opportunity. Every day is an opportunity to get better. Every day is an opportunity for you to reach out and touch someone, for you to go and find and learn new stuff that you didn't know. And I've also learned that through this whole COVID experience that some people like you just have to reach out to. And even throughout my life, there's family members who I didn't really communicate with, or teammates where I didn't think like I'd probably be interacting with them. But through this COVID experience, I've had to learn to, when I have nothing to do, or if I'm just in the mood, just call someone, talk to people, being able to express myself and getting out and doing things. And just being, like I said, being in the present. This COVID experience has changed my whole mentality towards my life and everything that I do.
Thank you, Orion, and thank you to all of our panelists for sharing their unique experiences and contributing to these important conversations. This concludes our prepared presentation. We are happy to facilitate questions now.
And this is Susan. I'm facilitating questions. I'm having some technical difficulties reading chat. I'm actually tuned into a different event. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask the student athletes a question, please, let's just be direct. Well, I just really want to thank everyone for taking the time to really make yourselves vulnerable between COVID and the social injustices that we've all been learning about or experiencing. I can tell there's a lot of community between athletes and a lot of similarities between the different disciplines you all participate in. And I hope that Iowa State continues to be a place where these genuine conversations can really happen, and that we all are learning on lots of different levels every day. So thank you all.
I wanted to chime in. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I wanted to chime in and just say to the students and to the coaching community that the issues that you guys had to deal with all of the uncertainty that all college students had to endure, but yours was compounded by being an athlete, by being pulled out of your seasons and having to go home to all of the unexpected things. I just want to applaud you guys for making the personal adjustments that you had to make and were forced to make. And I'm a new staff member here in LAS, and it's impressive that you guys are able to make that shift. And for those of you who have had to deal with social justice issues on an ongoing basis, and for those of you who've never had to encounter those issues, I just think it has been a tremendous learning experience for us individually and us collectively as a nation. You know, from all of the issues surrounding George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud, I think the nation woke up, and we can no longer deny all of the social ills. So I just wanted to encourage you guys to stay vigilant. I think the pandemic changed every person in society, whether you are an American citizen or any other place in the world. We can no longer pretend that these things don't exist in society. They've existed for well over 400 years, but now we have to face them. And I just want to say to you guys that keep learning and keep growing, because it's important that we do that in a very authentic way. So I wanted to be a part of the presentation because I was very curious to learn how it impacted you, how COVID impacted student athletes, as not just as an administrator, but also as a parent of students who have gone through both high school and college. I really was curious to know how you guys dealt with it. And I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for sharing what you did. And I guess per the title of the presentation of using your platform, I guess I'd like some more information on that. You talked about experiences you had, and you talked about how you grew as individuals, but how did you use your platform as student athletes, particularly student athletes at Iowa State University? Other than the efforts that they made with the Big 12, I've seen some of those commercials about that, but how did you as individuals use your platform to participate in the social justice movement?
For me, it was mainly just like posting videos that I've seen, or posting videos of like instances where social injustices were happening, and really just finding ways to communicate with individuals who are experiencing that stuff. And like me personally, even in my own life, like I've experienced social injustices, so I know what it feels like. And just really trying to educate my family members on certain stuff. Like if I was to find a certain post where it had information, giving it to family members so that they're aware and they're educated on things that are going on.
I think another piece too, and just everything we've done with SAC of making student athletes aware of their platform and how people will listen to them, and really just the education piece of getting student athletes involved in having, those difficult conversations, taking things back to their team, and really trying to share their stories with how they're getting involved and what all to do.
And I think that social media was huge. I mean, during quarantine, when we were all separated, that was still an outlet for us to be connected. And so, as Orion mentioned, sharing different things on social media to be resources for other student athletes. If a handful of Iowa State students see something that we post on our social media, that's another person who might not have had the information before. So I think leaning in on using social media appropriately and effectively had been huge throughout the spring and summer.
Lehr, I also like your question about the Black History Month and how only perhaps one person was contributing. And when we start to think about our personal communities, our workspaces, or just being a student, it really is important to be inclusive. I love the fact that you asked that question because you can contribute just like any other student can contribute, and it's not the responsibility of one department or students of color or people of color. You know, we live in a society where we all should be informed and curious about each other as citizens of this nation. So I really appreciated that. That was great to hear.
Thank you. I think it was a good experience for me to have, like you mentioned, outside of just my experience as a student athlete, my experience as a student at Iowa State. I think that it was a fulfilling experience to have in the workplace as a young adult.
Well, thank you all. And we have a keynote at noon, so we'll see you there. Thank you, Allye, for facilitating. I think we all learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you. We were happy to be a part of this conference.
Thank you.
Go State.
Great job.
That was a good presentation.
Oh, it's blast from the past. How are you?
I'm good. I attended the session on the music industry.
Yesterday? No.
No, today. I submitted a question. I don't know if they, the one about getting white artists involved.
Okay.
With Bob Dylan and stuff. It stumped her a little bit because they don't know who Bob Dylan is. It didn't register. It was interesting.
I see we have Ronnie here. It's always interesting to see the different people in the session. I guess it is, you can build community on a computer screen.
So what's happening now?
Just people are hanging around. Actually, I need to close the session out and get ready for the keynote. So I will talk to you at a different time, Dr. Hill.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.